Once upon a time, our roads were smooth, well-maintained, largely empty transport arteries that allowed for rapid, uninterrupted progress. Not anymore though. Welcome to the Car Guys, and this week it's Pothole Armageddon. Today, roads all across the UK and many other parts of the world are rapidly deteriorating, leading to car-destroying potholes. In your country, you might call them chuck holes. In my country, we call them f***ing annoying. Why and how has our road infrastructure completely collapsed? How damaging are the potholes for our cars? What types of potholes are there, and can anything be done about it? So let's drive this Car Guys episode recklessly into a pothole and see just how deep does the rabbit hole go. This is what we're talking about. As you can see, this portion of country road, typical for the UK, is, well, it's a war zone. There's more hole than road. The crater, for that's what it is way more than a mere pothole. It's got serrated edges, it's wide, and boy, is it deep. Even a Land Rover has to take it through here, and normal cars, forget it. Hit something like this at speed at night or when it's filled with water like it is now, and your wheels will be buckled, your tyre shredded, and you may also lose bodywork and expensive suspension components. The cost could be thousands. This is a 60 miles an hour national speed limit road. Imagine hitting this on a bicycle or a motorbike at speed. That, my friends, could easily be fatal. To leave something like this for so long is criminally negligent, and the local council responsible is opening itself up to all sorts of civil prosecution. And yet, this one has been here for over 2 months. The AA recently published figures for 2023 that showed it was called out to 632,852 pothole-related incidents, a 5-year high. That's over 1,700 a day. And of course, it doesn't include the huge number of pothole interactions where you manage to get home or to a tyre supplier to fix the damage without calling out a recovery service. The AA estimates that reported damage due to potholes costs UK drivers nearly £500 million a year. It's become such an earth-splitting epidemic that the AA has joined up with other groups to form the Pothole Partnership with a 5-point plan to improve the situation. Whether that's going to make any difference, however, remains to be seen. The total cost of fixing all of the UK's roads is estimated at £12.6 billion, and it's going to take 11 years. For years, councils in this country have diverted funding away from basic services like this in order to spend it on pointless vanity projects or pandering to vocal activist groups. And it's worth noting that council highway maintenance budgets have also been cut since 2020. We've seen our drains left blocked, causing flooding that can be blamed conveniently on climate change. We've seen critical reductions in local policing, crime prevention and solving, and of course, the roads have gone to hell in a handbasket. It seems that rather than fix the problem, councils prefer to just pay out compensation, if drivers can even be bothered to claim. It's also worth mentioning that as bad as we have it in the UK, many countries around the world, as you can see here, are much, much worse. With potholes almost as deep as the cars that are falling into them. Know your enemy, they say, so today I'm going to drive a familiar route to me, which just so happens to have an example of pretty much every type of pothole. Sounds like a good excuse to hit the road, not literally, and see just how bad it is out there. Here I am then, and I am out today in the Maybach S600, a peculiar choice to go pothole hunting, I would agree, because of course this has got extremely large 22-inch rims, and they're basically painted black on the outside for all the good that the rubber is on this car. Exceptionally low profile tyres, which are very, very susceptible to potholes. In fact, this car has had 5 punctures in the last year. 5. And all of them caused by potholes. So of course it's the natural choice for me to take on this trip. So what we're doing now is we're going to drive along a road that I know quite well. It's got lots of potholes in it, and I'm going to attempt to explain just what we're up against as motorists. How dangerous are they? What are they like? I'm also going to give you my pet names for these potholes, which you may use yourself in common parlance, and we're going to explain exactly what they're like and the damage that they do. So hopefully this will be entertaining and instructional. Also worth bearing in mind, if you've got any potholes near you that you particularly think are horrendous, do send them to the Car Guys, either by email or via Instagram or any other way that you can send us something. We'd love to see it. And also, if you've got any of your own pet names for potholes, please send them over as well, and maybe I'll feature them in a follow-up to this episode if this episode is popular. Now, in the last 4 years particularly, potholes really have become an epidemic, and they've got worse and worse. There is a fix where you can chuck some grit in it and stamp it down a little bit and hope that'll fix it, but it doesn't at all. Within a few weeks it's back, and generally worse than ever. Now, the roads in the UK particularly are known to be bad. If you go into Europe, for example, you'll find incredibly smooth, well-maintained roads in places like Germany and in Belgium, but over here not so much, mainly because obviously our climate is much worse. We've got to contend with a lot more rain, a lot more frosts, quick frost, rain, quick frost, all that sort of stuff, which is absolute death for tarmac. So you can understand why the roads are so bad, but one thing I've never understood is that, considering the amount of money that we pay in road tax and insurance and all sorts of other costs, and just general tax, council tax, etc., why that money isn't going into the roads to improve them. And the simple answer is, ladies and gentlemen, is that they keep squirreling away that money and spending it on very stupid things. And many politicians, if not all, don't see the roads as a priority at all. As soon as the cuts come, that's where they take the money from in order to pay for their expense accounts and their second homes. So coming along this stretch of road, we're going to come across the first pothole on our list. This is a great example coming up here, so we're going to approach it relatively slow speed, and it's one that I like to call the shithouse. Now, this is a pothole that's large enough to fit in an entire wheel, but it's not large enough for you to spot at speed. They're also deep enough to shatter suspension, ruin shock absorbers and buckle rims. Often the first thing you notice about this pothole is the impact at speed. It's the bone-jarring crash that you get. And that's why it's one of the most dangerous types. Now, this is one of the worst potholes and areas of road that I think I've ever encountered, especially as it's on a main road and quite a busy road. Essentially what we've got here coming up, ladies and gentlemen, is the landslide. Now look at this absolute disaster of a road. First of all, you get this big bump on the landslide, which is that one, just to unsettle the car. Then as you rise, you can see the surface of the tarmac is bulging on one side with a deep rough crevasse on the right near the white lines, which basically means that in order to get past this successfully, you've pretty much got to go on the other side of the road. If you stay to the left though, you're treated to a seismic shock of violent bumps, changes of direction, and of course, inevitable tyre damage. Oh, that is absolutely horrendous feeling. If you hit this at speed, you're in proper trouble. You could actually lose control because of the deep ruts that are in it. But yeah, I have to say, the landslide is one of the worst that you can ever encounter, because basically the road has just given up. The fact that a road like that exists and hasn't been fixed is shameful. The worst thing about hitting a pothole hard is, of course, you stand a good chance of ripping the tyre apart, which means it goes down straight away and you're trapped by the side of the road. You've got to wait for a recovery service, and often they're in pretty dangerous positions. And of course, even if you suffer damage and can get home, you've still then got to get a call-out service or try and find the right tyre, and tyres are in short supply. So it's generally a bit of a nightmare, and don't even talk about suspension damage. But just look at this part of road as well. This whole section here on the left has completely failed. So this whole carriageway has been closed off, and basically they've just put traffic lights in because it is not even possible to drive on the left. It's absolutely outrageous. And just up here we've got a really good example of what I like to call the iceberg. This is a pothole that looks smaller than it actually is when you hit it, and like the iceberg, 3/5 of it is actually beneath the surface. They're much deeper than you think as you approach, and if you don't take avoiding action, you may find the whole tyre dropping in, resulting in severe damage to your alloys and possibly also your suspension. Oh, that's a bad one there as well. Now this one is a shredder, and this is a real car killer, and it's actually been responsible for 2 of the punctures that I've had in this very car. This is a pothole where the edges are so sharp that if you roll your tyre over them, you risk tearing a Titanic-sized hole on the inside of the tyre. Typically, shredders are long and thin and located on the very edge of the road so that they're difficult to spot. And if you're avoiding oncoming traffic, they're very easy to hit without warning. This results in a rapid deflation of the tyre, even when you've got run flats, and you're stranded straight away by the side of the road, often in a very dangerous place. Okay, so now we're going to look at a phenomenon known as the pits. Now you can see here coming up, yep, there they are. You've got to take avoiding action to get around them. Now these are very common as the road begins to degrade, and in many cases this is the precursor to the full-blown pothole. This is actually a pretty good example, pitting on the surface of the road about 1/2 inch deep, not quite large enough to fit in a tyre, but enough to take a decent nibble out of them. By far, these are now the most common potholes, and if you leave them, they only get bigger. Now I'm going to take you back to the one that all started this. Oh, hang on, look at that. Oh, that's a good example of a shithouse right there. Lovely. Just along here is the pothole that we started with in this episode, and this is one that I like to call the crater, because it's so enormous it's almost not a pothole at all. It's like an asteroid hit the earth. As you can see here, this to me is the king of potholes, a pothole or a series of potholes that have grown into one enormous crater. They can easily fill with water, they can be multi-leveled, and this is no exaggeration, can fit an entire car or SUV inside. Hitting a crater at speed is a major seismic event, especially on a motorbike, and this is by far the worst I have ever seen. In fact, look at this, there's a lot less water now than when I first came in. Can you see this? So we're going to enter a crater right now. Look at the size of that pothole. That is absolutely terrifying. We're doing no speed at all. Oh, there you go. Front of the car has just fallen in. There's the other side. Note the distance. Just, taking it very easy in this car because it's so easy to get a puncture hole. That is an absolute catastrophe of a pothole. And this is another pet peeve of mine, fly tippers. Absolute twats who just dump rubbish down lanes and then just leave it. Builders, tradesmen, these are the worst kind of humans. They just dump it there, then drive off and leave it for someone else to sort out. I loathe you people. And here we are then, the last one on my list. This is the absolute bastard. Here's a good example, hiding on the brow of a humpback bridge, so you have no chance of avoiding it. And this is a pothole that's large enough to do some serious damage, but it's entirely hidden from view until you hit it. Hence, oh, you absolute bastard. And this one's even worse because your tyre is loaded up on the left-hand side because you're negotiating a corner, which means you got more pressure on that tyre, therefore there's more chance of a puncture. So there you are, pothole Armageddon. The roads are disintegrating, the budgets are shrinking, our cars are being trashed, and no one seems even the slightest bit bothered about it in positions of power. It's costing motorists millions every single year, and it only seems to be getting worse. Thanks for watching this episode of The Car Guys on Pothole Armageddon, the state of our roads all over the world, actually, not just the UK, and the fact that no one seems to be doing anything about it. Hope you enjoyed the episode, hope you found it entertaining and useful. If you like what we're doing on The Car Guys, please subscribe, leave comments and likes. There'll be another episode, hopefully, next week.